visit every year when we come up, and it's called Killwinds, and they have a pecan praline ice cream that is amazing. It's like butter on steroids.
Yeah.
Their chocolate peanut butter has like these thick chunks of peanut butter in it. Oh, so good.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Sounds amazing. All right, Christina, you want to share anything else before we get started? I know you like interactivity, and we've been encouraging that. So I know Christina would love for you guys to be active. Like I said, if you have a question that comes up, feel free to either put it in the Q&A or put it in chat, and we'll try to answer it along the way. We are now recording, so you'll have access to this afterwards. Thank you guys for joining us. I'll let you take it away, Christina. I'm going to mute.
All right. Thanks, Ashley. All right. Is everyone able to see my slides? Just post it in the chat if you can. All right. Awesome. Let's get going then, since I'm not having a good start to the day, but this is going to be good. All right. So today I'm here to talk about using HubSpot to reduce customer churn, specifically for SaaS companies. But I think that a lot of the things I'll talk about today will apply to, all businesses, all industries. So that's really exciting. And I have to say, I'm very honored and very excited, despite the fact being late, to be the first speaker at the first East Coast SaaS Hug. So thank you, Ashley and Tim, for having me. I'm super pumped. And we are recording, so we're good to go there. But I still really just like this gift. All right, so as Ashley mentioned, definitely light up the chat, and anything that I say that resonates with you, anything that sounds that you've done before that's worked really well, anything that you want to build off of that I say. If you find one of my jokes funny, you can post that. If you don't think it's funny, please don't post it. I have 2 more of these, later this week, so don't kill my vibe just yet. I already feel bad for being late because it's not my personality. But yeah, light up the chat. I want to see stuff. It's my favorite part about HubSpot meetings, not the icebreakers, but the chat. So go for it. All right, so agenda. We'll start really quickly with just a very, very brief overview of myself and my mentors. We'll dive into customer retention and acquisition and what that has to do with reducing churn and increasing profitability. We'll talk about the importance of customer retention for SaaS companies and the reasons why customers churn. And then I really want to spend the majority of the time talking about strategies that we can use to reduce churn, keep our customers happy and engaged. And then we'll kind of wrap it all up by talking about how we can pull it all together with HubSpot. I will say this is the part of my presentation and my slide deck that got wiped out. So we're going with the bare minimum here, but we're going to make it work, I promise. So the goal for today is to explore the reasons why customers churn, the importance of customer retention, and the strategies that you can use to keep your customers happy, engaged, and more than ready to purchase more from you. And then we'll pull it all together by walking through how to use the tools within HubSpot to decrease churn and increase retention, and ultimately increasing profitability. I was going to ask if y'all are ready, but I just went on to the next slide. So y'all are ready. Hey everyone, my name is Christina Bakish. I am an inbound consultant here at HubSpot. I have been working at HubSpot for the last 2.5 years now. And a fun fact, actually, it was 3 years ago this week that I applied for this job at HubSpot. Another fun fact, I actually did not get the job that time. So got to the final round of interviews, came to Boston. I feel like I crushed it. Got great feedback, but just didn't get the job. And then 3 months later, they reached out, so they had another opening, asked if I was interested. And before they could finish that sentence, I said, heck yes. So got this job. But prior to joining HubSpot, I worked for several solutions partners, and I've been using HubSpot in some capacity since 2013. And from the moment I watched my first HubSpot Academy video, I knew that I wanted to work at HubSpot. This was the job that I wanted. I was going to go after it no matter what. At the time, it seems so unlikely, and I always say, oh, no, no, nope. Wow. Wow. Well, there we go. Technology. I always say technology is not my friend. And what I always say is that's a series of unfortunate events that led me to this job. But I'd go through every single one of those things again to be able to do this job, to wear a shirt that says HubSpot, to have HubSpot under my name, like as a job. Like that's bizarre to me. So I feel incredibly lucky to do this job, to work at HubSpot. And it's as cheesy as it sounds, it's amazing. But enough about me. Which types of dogs do I have? We'll get there, promise. So the real stars of the show and the real reason I think people come to these events are for dogs. So if it were up to me, there we go. Yeah. I probably would be in the office right now, but I know everyone wants to see the dogs. So I actually don't know where they are right now, but I'm sure they'll be here at some point. So let's meet the mentors, like the real stars of the show. First, we have Hendrix. He's the OG. I've had him for about 5 years now. He is the canine executive officer. He really runs this show. He's actually my service dog, so I pretty much depend on him when I go out. And I think he does it willingly, despite the face that makes him look very sad. He, prior to COVID, frequently visited HQ, and that was before he was fully trained as a service dog. And he's definitely a fan favorite among everyone in pro services, among everyone at HubSpot. No one asks me how I'm doing, but everyone does ask how Hendrix is doing. So, that's cool. That's fine. I can't wait to see Hendrix again. It's fine. Anyway, next we have Khaleesi. So she's the baby of the three, and Hendrix is a Beagle Lab mix. So next we have Khaleesi. She's the baby of the family. She is a Weimaraner mix, and she would be the growth marketer. Although I don't think she really grows anything, she destroys things. So we'll see. She's definitely a resident troublemaker. If at any point it looks like something's falling down, it's probably because she knocked it over. She definitely lives up to her name. So if you've seen Game of Thrones, yeah, that is her. And we're all Hogwarts people. I have a Hogwarts tattoo, Harry Potter tattoo here. I'm a Ravenclaw. Hendrix is a Hufflepuff. Khaleesi would never get into Hogwarts ever. Just wouldn't do it, but she'd be a Slytherin if she did. And last but not least is Benny. He's the emotional support specialist. He is actually an emotional support animal. So I have Hendrix for task trained, and then Benny for another. He would be a Griffin dog, 100%. That he's brave, he's loyal, he's ride or die. Would absolutely, like, he's not here yet, but if there is a dog that is going to join this event, it will be Benny. He loves the camera. He loves being in the Zoom spotlight, and he will give me his bark of approval or disappointment during my consulting calls. So most of my recordings have him as part of it in one way or another. So that's enough about us and my dogs. Now let's dive into it. So a quick story when it comes to, customer retention and customer churn, essentially. Oh, here they all come. It's like they knew I was talking about them. So we've all been there. We've all had a moment that has made us say, see you later to a company. And sometimes it's because this product or service no longer fits our needs. Sometimes it's just we've grown out of it. We just don't need it anymore. It doesn't work for us. Time to move on. But more often than not, it has a whole lot to do with customer experience. And if I asked everyone to think of a time that they had a poor customer experience with a company, I guarantee you'd be able to think of that a whole lot faster than when you had a positive experience with a company. Because we remember the bad stuff and we remember it very well. And because it happens way too frequently. We know, both from a personal and business perspective, that not getting what you need from a business, not seeing value, not being treated like a human, not just having this experience that blows you away, all lead to customer churn. So we know this. We know this from our own personal perspectives. But how does that then translate to businesses and specifically SaaS companies? the big thing is that we often forget the flip side. So we know the things that lead to churn, but we often forget about the impact of investing in and creating a remarkable customer experience and what that can mean, not just for the people that are our customers, the people that we work with every day, every week, every month, every year, but also for our revenue and bottom line. And I just spilled water all over myself. Cool. As if this morning I couldn't get any worse. All right. Well, yeah. Everyone can put like a laughing emoji in the chat if you make me feel a little better. That'd be awesome. All right, so let's start. Thank you. Thanks, y'all. Really appreciate it. So let's dive into. It's not even Monday. Okay, let's dive into the meat of this presentation. Customer retention versus acquisition, and I just see y'all laughing. I can't stop laughing. And what that really means and why that's important when it comes to looking at churn. Customers are the lifeblood of any business, but especially for SaaS companies. So when we think about a SaaS company and the things that matter to us, customer acquisition cost, conversion rates, customer lifetime value, your most profitable acquisition channels, the list goes on. These are the things that will keep you up at night and be on your mind first thing in the morning, if you ever actually got to sleep in the first place. Now, all of those things are related to customer acquisition, but what about customer retention? Ultimately, customer retention takes a backseat. Yes, yet it's arguably more important than the acquisition metrics that we are thinking about and are top of mind. And it's truly more important than customer acquisition as a whole. But why? Well, it has something to do with this, and specifically that graph, this one in the middle, right here. Acquiring customers is 5 to 25 times more expensive than keeping your current customers. Now, Ashley did not share this at the beginning, but I actually initially went to college to be a high school math teacher. I love math very much, and I'm about to get a little math nerdy with y'all, so just bear with me while I work my way through this, but this makes me excited to talk about it. I love the numbers here. So 5 to 25%, that's a pretty big range, but that's a lot of money, even if we look at it on a small scale. And 70% of businesses say that customer success is very important. So that's on the retention side. And over 80% of companies believe that retention is cheaper than acquisition. Good. That's good to know. But we just realized that we're not thinking about retention. We're thinking about acquisition. How do we acquire new customers? What channels do we go after? Where are most of our leads coming from? That's what we're thinking about. We're not thinking about the retention side of things, but we should be. Customer retention is far less expensive and far, far more beneficial for your business. Now, this isn't a blanket statement, but business revenue often follows the 80-20 rule, as do a lot of things in life. So 80% of your future profits will come from 20% of your existing customers. Might want to keep those existing customers and keep them real happy. And we know that a 5% increase in customer retention increases our profits anywhere from 25 to 95%. Again, a big range there, but 5% at minimum can increase your profits 25%. Repeat customers will spend around 67% more than a new customer because they know you, they trust you, they see the value in what you have to offer, and they are willing to spend more money to work with you and to continue working with you. And just like we put on the last slide, around over 80% of companies agree that retention is cheaper than acquisition. So focusing on retention is a no-brainer. Customer retention costs less because instead of spending time, money, and resources targeting, attracting, engaging new people who know nothing about you, trying to convince them that your product and your service is exactly what they need, you just have to focus on the customers you already have, the people that you've already shown value to, the people that already believe that your product is exactly what they need. And so the statistics alone should be enough to convince you to put customer retention above customer acquisition. But unfortunately, it's not for most businesses. And we're going to shift that mindset today. And there's more to it than just the statistics, but I'm still not done with the statistics because I love math. This is fun. This is the fun part. So now we're going to get into the importance of customer retention for SaaS companies. Ultimately, it's all about the business model. So the way that the SaaS business, the importance of customer retention boils down to how the SaaS business model is built. It boils down to how do SaaS companies make money long term? And a little bit more nerdy stuff, and then I'm done. We'll get into the cool, fun, strategic stuff, I promise. So let's look at it from a financial and mathematical perspective. So for many businesses, a closed-won deal is an immediate reason for celebration. And as it should be. Getting a new customer is exciting. It's awesome. It's fun. It's worth celebrating. Every new customer should be a big deal. But we need to remember that acquisition is not the end game or the profitable factor for SaaS companies. It's retention. And so go ahead, celebrate that new customer. But don't look at that closed-won deal and say, awesome, we're done, we've achieved our goal. No business should do that, but especially not with SaaS companies, because it has everything to do with the business model and how it's structured from a financial perspective. SaaS companies, and this is more for B2B, but I saw some B2C specific statistics that were pretty similar to this one. So SaaS companies spend anywhere between 1 to 3 times the annual contract value to acquire a customer. In other words, your customer acquisition cost is 1, 2, 3 times higher than you will make from that customer in a year. That's actually kind of terrifying when we think about it. And so from a mathematical perspective, the day and the minute that you close that deal, you've actually lost money. And you've taken a financial hit. So you have to make sure you're retaining those customers, because it's not until after that first year that you're actually generating revenue off of them and making money for your business. There has to be a reason why we're doing all this, why we're spending all this money to acquire these customers. We're not just doing it for no reason, right? Someone say right. Go for it. Come on. Yes. Thank you. I would say I would send you all stickers, but I have no way to do that. But I do have a bunch of stickers here. So why do we do this to ourselves? Why do we spend so much money acquiring customers? Well, one, because acquiring customers is just freaking expensive. Think about the ways to generate new leads these days. Ads are more popular now than I've ever seen them. When I first started HubSpot, I don't think I consulted with many customers on ads, and now I consult with everyone on ads. And ads are freaking expensive. That's just the paid side of things. That's not accounting for how much time it takes to create other forms of awareness stage content to attract these people. And the second reason that we do it is because the SaaS business model is rooted in customer retention. To retain customers, we need to acquire them first. But if your customers churn before making enough payments, so essentially a year, for you to break even on your acquisition costs, you're never going to be profitable. And this is why we focus on customer retention, because that's what makes you the money. Inevitably, you're going to have to spend the money to acquire the customers. But where your financial gain is going to come in is on the retention side. So we need to shift our mindset. Just like too many companies celebrate that closed one deal, too many companies, especially SaaS companies, focus on these bright, shiny objects of the SaaS world. So like those instant wins, those instant gratifications, trial to paid conversions, quick signups where you didn't have to do anything to make it happen. A customer who signed up immediately after doing a demo and you're like, I'm awesome. It feels good. It's great. But when we do that and we put our focus on those things, retention still becomes an afterthought. So what has to change? Ultimately, shifting your mindset means recognizing that customer retention begins the moment that deal hits closed won, and especially the moment that you begin the onboarding process for your customer. Those other things are cool, instant gratification, they make you feel awesome, but look at onboarding as your new bright and shiny object. That needs to be at the forefront of your mind all the time. Because a great onboarding experience sets the foundation for a strong customer experience and a healthy customer retention rate. When I started out here at HubSpot, I've always been an inbound consultant. For my first year, I focused mainly on onboarding, and that's what I did with customers, is I helped them onboard onto HubSpot. And I can say without a doubt in my mind, I know, and even now as recurring inbound consulting, having customers coming out of onboarding, their experience that they have during onboarding will set the tone for the rest of their relationship with HubSpot. It is very hard to start off an engagement poorly and get their minds to change enough so that they want to stay. I think some of the reasons that they stay are because it's HubSpot and they tough it out. But other than that, sometimes I'm not sure with how unhappy some of these customers have been coming out of onboarding. So I know from my own experience, well, this is going great. Look at onboarding as your bright and shiny object, people. That's all I gotta say. Moving on. Technology. So focus on customer retention first. Put that at the forefront of your mind. Yes, success as a service. 100%. I thumbs up that. Yes, I can. All right. It's true though. When we look at success and we look at the customer and put the customer first and focus on their retention and their success, ultimately we're going to be more successful as a business too. So like we've been saying, it just makes sense. The SaaS business model is rooted in customer retention, which is designed to increase your profitability over time. So we need our customers to stay with us because it's how we make money. But if we want to decrease churn and keep customers longer, we have to prioritize customer retention and prioritize the customer experience and what we're creating from the second that they start onboarding with us. I'm going to try drinking again. We'll see what happens. Yes. So why do customers churn? There's a ton of reasons why. I try to condense it down, and it's not always as simple and straightforward as it seems. Some of them are beyond your control. Like I said earlier, we've all had experiences with customers or companies where the business or the need just isn't there anymore for us. Like it's time to move on. Can't change that, but there are things that we do have an influence over. So common reasons customers churn. They're switching to a competitor. This one kind of goes both ways. because they might be switching to a competitor because you don't offer, what they need. Going kind of the last one on there, the product lacks the functionality that they need. But they could also be going to a competitor because the cost to switch is actually cheaper than the cost to stay. And you will actually benefit from that in the future as well. So it goes both ways on that one. But a lot of times when people switch to a competitor, they're not doing it because of the fact that you don't have the functionality that they need, or that, it's time for them to move on. It's really often comes down to the customer experience that you've provided. And that's why they're going to a competitor, that they just haven't gotten the experience that they wanted. I've heard this a lot from customers that have switched over from other platforms to HubSpot. And since I did come at a time where asking who here uses HubSpot, and it was a general consensus that we all do, I will just say that I will not name any names. I'm not going to name any names, but a lot of people who switch from one platform to HubSpot do so because of the experience that they had. Yes, the platform itself was not what they needed, but it really came down to the experience when they had a problem and they weren't able to solve it, and they were not able to get anywhere. It was the experience. So another reason customers churn: organizational changes and or a tightened budget. It might be a matter of, the person who initially chose you is no longer with the company and there's no champion within the company anymore. Reduced budget. We actually see this, or at least I do as a consultant, I see this quite a bit, where customers are like, we're staying with HubSpot, but we just can't afford inbound consulting anymore. Like, our budget's tightened down, can't afford it. That's legit. And we do this at HubSpot too, but some things you can think about here are there any opportunities to potentially save the customer so they don't leave us completely? Some ideas are downgrading to a lower tier, a lower product, a lower service. It could be a matter of removing any unpaid or unused licenses so that they're only paying for what they need. Maybe changing their billing terms to be monthly or quarterly instead of having to pay up front. Giving them a discount for staying on a full year and saying, like, hey, we want you to stay on the full year. We want you to be really engaged. We also want, you to give us a testimonial at the end. People don't want to change. People don't like change. They don't want to switch. So try to find ways for them to stay. Next one here is poor customer fit. When it comes to poor customer fit, this a lot of times is rooted in a sales process that values numbers over the quality of those leads. So we need to make sure that we are focusing on good fit customers and getting them to become our customers, because they're the people that are going to stay. A poor fit customer doesn't have a business need. We're not going to be able to achieve their goals. We're not going to have the functionality that they need. And ultimately, they're going to churn. And they've cost us a lot of money in that. Another reason: failure to achieve their goals. A lot of this one comes down to customer success and customer support. When someone signs up for a product or service, especially with SaaS companies, when they're, trying out a new software, a new app, whatever it might be, they have a need. They have goals that they want to achieve. When they don't achieve them, it's not usually a they problem, it's an us problem. We didn't do something to help them achieve their goals. We didn't listen to their feedback. We didn't implement their changes. We didn't take them seriously. We didn't help them. We didn't go through the onboarding process to make sure they could be successful and use the tool the way that they should have been able to. That's on us. And product lacks functionality that they need. Not always our problem. Even at HubSpot, we do not have everything. Pretty much every week I get asked by a customer, why doesn't HubSpot do this? Or why can't HubSpot do that? Or when is HubSpot going to be able to do this? And truthfully, some of those things are just not on our roadmap. They're never going to be. But something to consider here is, are you listening to what your customers are asking for? Are you listening to the things that they are saying, hey, we need this, we want this? Or are you prioritizing your own product roadmap, which might be completely different from what your customers are looking for? If you're prioritizing your own wants and needs over what the customer wants, that's on you, not on the customer. And a few other reasons here, which I think we've hit on kind of through all of this. So lack of engagement with the product comes down to onboarding. If they don't get up and running right from the very beginning, they're not going to be using the product. And a lack of engagement means they're going to go somewhere else. The more a customer uses a tool, the more likely they are to stay because they become a sticky customer. They love the product. They get so used to using it, they don't want to go anywhere else. A poor user experience of the product. Glitches are inevitable. Technology problems are inevitable. Downtime is inevitable. These things, it's going to happen. But if you're having glitches all the time, if your product and features are down all the time, if it's difficult to navigate a tool, not naming any names, difficult to use a tool, that's going to be a reason that a customer churns. Poor customer experience. I don't think I need to explain this one. We know that a customer will churn, quickly when they have a poor experience. And it's very, very difficult to change someone's mind after they've had that experience. It's not impossible. I've saved some customers by changing things around, but it's tough. And finally, the last one here is a lack of proactive support. So and I'll say this again later, but we want to be proactive, not reactive, when it comes to the support that we are giving our customers. We should not wait until they have a problem for us to go out and say, let's fix it. We should have known that that was happening because we should have been asking about it. We should have been aware of the things that have happened. We should have been listening. And we'll go into more of that when we talk about strategies. But the idea is you want to be proactive rather than reactive. And that ultimately is going to keep your customers, make them happy, also lead to that customer stickiness that we all want. All right, the fun part and the non-math part. The strategies for reducing churn, keeping your customers happy, engaged, and spending more money. I didn't number them here, but I think there's 6 of them. So the first one, you want to improve your onboarding experience. We know, and we've talked about, the customer retention starts during onboarding. So you need to make sure that your onboarding experience is seamless and flawless and makes it easy for them to get started. You need to hold their hand. We all say, like, oh, we're adults, we don't need to hold anyone's hand. Yes, you do. You need to hold their hand and walk them through the process. Never assume that someone knows how to use your product just because they came from a competitor. Never assume anything. So make sure that you have the information that people need when they need it, where they need it, and make sure that it's easy to access, because if it's not, again, churn, it's gonna be a problem. We have to create this remarkable onboarding process for our customers. And having done onboarding, I know that, granted, HubSpot wrote the playbook for me. I just had to follow it, but it's tough. It's hard. It requires some iteration. Everyone does it a little bit differently. But just think about how important it is even when you're starting with anything new, how that first interaction is and how that shapes what you do moving forward. Another strategy is identifying inactive and disengaged customers. So when you notice that your customers aren't using your product, or maybe are only using part of your product and not all of it, don't wait, reach out. Don't say, oh, they haven't used it in a week, like I'm going to send this email and be like, hey, are you okay? Is everything all right? Like, we take vacations, we go places, life happens, COVID happens. You know, we don't need to jump to conclusions, but if you notice that a customer or a user from that company is repeatedly and consistently not engaged in using the tool, that's when you want to reach out and to start identifying other customers who are doing the same. So instead of just looking at usage, look at engagement. How many times per day do they log into the software? Now, this varies based on your, niche industry and how often they might need to use it, but that's something to consider. How long are they staying in the platform versus how long should they be staying in the platform? How many tools or sections or parts of your software or product are they using? These are all things we think about at HubSpot as well, and these are all things that at least I use to identify. I mean, I know who I haven't talked to in a while, but I also look at the metrics to see who's not engaged, who hasn't signed into HubSpot in a month, who hasn't been in the portal for more than 30 seconds at a time, who's only using 2 of our, I don't even know how many marketing tools, and no sales, no service, no workflows, nothing. Those are the customers, HubSpot or not, that we should be reaching out to, that we should be prioritizing. And we need to take action to re-engage those customers, because we can't just assume that everything's going to be good and all fine and well, and they're going to come back one day. A customer who uses our software and uses it consistently will stay. A customer that stops using our software will build the habit of not using the software, and they're going to move on. So a common strategy that I have seen and that I've done with my customers is essentially a re-engagement campaign to just really encourage them to log in to the platform and start using it again. Remind them what they have access to, the features and benefits that will come out of using your software. You can even show them the value that they received in the past from using the platform, and kind of give them that FOMO experience. Like, here's what you're missing out on by not logging in all the time, by not being, in the tool and using the platform. Here's the insights you might be missing out on. Here's the experience that you're missing out on. Here's just in general, like, what you're not getting from not being there. And in this, always be human. We might use workflows, and I'll talk about this a little bit later. Workflows is a really great way to automate this process, but we don't want to rely on automation 100%, because there will come a time people ignore emails, people might not ever re-engage, and there's going to be a time where we're going to need to either pick up the phone or send an email one-to-one, or even get on a call with them and, Zoom, whatever it might be, and have that conversation and talk them through getting back into the platform, show them what they've missed while they haven't been using it. Be human every step of the way. Remember that they're human just like you. Things happen, and focus on the value that you can provide them and remind them why they love you so much in the first place. So this is kind of going off that last one, is engaging with your customers. You want to stay in touch with them. Let them know what's going on within the company, any new products that you're launching, features, tools, anything that you have going on in the company. Keep your customers informed of those things. Obviously HubSpot, everything goes everywhere. It's all over the internet. People know about things sometimes before I do, but that is not true for most companies. And you can't expect that someone's just going to know that something's happening. So keep them informed, but also promote things that are human, like success stories. Show them what's been going really well, how a customer has been impacted in a positive way from using your software. And check in with customers who might need some assistance with your product. We think everyone is tech savvy nowadays. I'm just going to say no. That is not true. And there will be people who need more handholding than others. take the time to reach out to those people. And if it means getting on a Zoom call with them and walking them through, here's how you log into the software. Here's what you should be looking for. Here's what you should be doing, those reminders. Is it stressful? Yeah. Do you have a lot of things going on? Yeah. Is it important? Yeah. And this is another one of those, be proactive instead of reactive, especially for things like upcoming contract renewals. No one likes being hit with a bill when they were not expecting it. I did not like my $500 GoDaddy charge without being told I was going to be charged $500 from GoDaddy. And I got the refund, but that was not okay. If you're making any changes to your pricing or your subscription model, let people know well ahead of time so that they know that it's coming and they can account for those changes. They can ask questions, be prepared, be proactive, and also have materials ready to explain those things to people. And any major company updates that might, rock the world, make sure that you're getting ahead of it first. Like I said, most companies are not going to end in national news for something that happens at their company. But the last thing you want is for a customer to find out a major company update, like, major change in leadership or something like that through LinkedIn, instead of just hearing it directly from you when they, they're like, I thought we had this great relationship. And yes, people only like good surprises for the most part. Sometimes a good surprise can be a little scary, but good surprises, good thing. Bad surprises, like, you can surprise someone and be like, hey, rest of the year is free. You're not going to do that, but like, that's all right. But like, hey, we're going to charge you $500 more next year. Nah, not going to go so well. If there's one thing that you leave here with today, other than all like my math statistics, which I know none of you remember, but it's fine. If you leave with one thing, the key to reducing churn and increasing retention is feedback. Feedback is the breakfast of champions and customer retention. It is the way that you are going to be successful. If you are not asking for feedback, your customers are going to give it to you and not in a way you want them to give it to you. So ask for it first. And make sure that you're asking for that feedback at the right times. People would much rather spend a few minutes every 3 to 6 months filling out a feedback survey, or every time they talk to support or something like that, than getting a survey every single week or every single month, and they're like, no. When you dial it back a little bit, and obviously think about your business and your business model and the way that your customers work, but when you dial it back a little, you're going to get better responses and likely more responses. So when we back at the right time, we think of two things: major customer milestones and value points within their journey. So if they had a free trial first, and then, or actually if they just had a free trial, regardless of whether they became a customer, get feedback. I think I go into this later, but knowing why a customer didn't choose you is actually, or a prospect didn't choose you, is just as important as understanding why a customer chose you. Again, things you might not be able to change, but there are some things that you could potentially change, and you wouldn't know it if you don't ask. It's scary to ask someone, why did you not choose me? But it's also some of the best feedback that you can get. It's completely invaluable. Like, you cannot put a price on that type of feedback. Other times, and other major milestones. So maybe milestones during the onboarding process, depending on what, how the length of your onboarding process, what it looks like. Is it self-service, or are they working with an onboarding specialist? At major milestones throughout the onboarding process, and then after they complete onboarding. Great times to ask for feedback. And then there's just going to be other situations where you want feedback. After a customer contacts support, how was their experience? Were they easily able to get to a resolution? Also looking at if you monitor customer health scores, if they drop below a certain threshold, that's a good time to reach out. Granted, you would want to do it before if you possibly can, but if you are doing it before and you're still seeing those drops, having feedback surveys and reaching out to those people to figure out what happened, what went wrong, even if it's not a feedback survey and it's a one-to-one email, we do this a lot at HubSpot. We see a customer's health score go down, we'll reach out one-to-one just to say, like, hey, what's going on? Like, why have things changed? Like, what can we do to help? How can we help solve for you and your as the customer? As far as how we get feedback, obviously we have the formal feedback surveys, NPS, CSAT, customer effort score, but also informal check-ins like temperature checks. And those are those things where you're just reaching out. It could be done through a workflow. It could be done through a sequence and templates. It can be done, just in a lot of different ways. But that's where that invaluable feedback comes in, because it's open-ended and it gives the customer a chance to share whatever it is that's on their mind. That's not confined to one of the actual surveys. But just as it's important to ask for the feedback, you actually have to act on it, because if you don't act on it, it doesn't look very good. And whether you got that feedback from an informal check-in, from a survey, from seeing something posted on social media, or it was just, a customer sent you an email letting you know some feedback, make sure you're taking action. And make sure that you're following up with them to learn more about their experience. Not every single person is going to want to share why they had a bad experience. Like, if they're pissed, and they might not want to talk about it. At the same time, if they're pissed, they might want to talk a lot about it. And truthfully, I would much rather listen to a customer complain to me and tell me all the things that they don't like about working with me for an hour than to find out that they went to the sales rep or their CSM or their contract manager, and then it got back to my manager and I'm hearing about it for the first time from someone else. Yell at me all you want for an hour. That tells me what I can change. So at the end of the day, be open to hearing the feedback no matter. And if they had a poor experience, see if there's a way that you can make things right or better, or make a plan to make things better. And as we say at HubSpot, SFTC, solve for the customer. Always lead with empathy, take the feedback seriously, and actually make changes that you're hearing from your customers. If something's wrong with the onboarding process, fix it. If you're consistently being told that your support reps are mean, you might want to have a conversation about that. If people are telling you that they're not getting help when they contact support, that they're just being directed in a bunch of different ways and they still don't know what to do, those are things you want to listen to, and those are things that you actually want to pay attention to. I think this is the last one. Delivering remarkable customer service. Poor customer service is hands down, if not the biggest reason, it is one of the biggest reasons that customers churn. So we've talked about all of these strategies already, but ways that you can deliver a really remarkable customer experience is to ask for feedback and actually implement it. Give people ways to self-service. Make sure that the information that they need is readily available so that they don't have to go in a million different directions, especially when they're onboarding. Make it easy for them to find the information that they need so that they can take care of themselves, and know that they will definitely reach out to you if they have a question. Don't block the exit. We obviously don't want customers to churn. And this is not to say throw away your terms of service, let people out of their contract, halfway through. That's not what we're saying. But if a customer wants to leave, make it easy for them to do so. They should be able to go in and put in a cancellation at their renewal for their renewal date. They should not have to sit on the phone with someone for 30 minutes to cancel anything after they're getting charged for $500 for it. It should just be simple for them to be able to do it. Don't make it harder for them than it has to be. Even if they churn, but they have a seamless experience offboarding as they did onboarding, you might still get some really positive word of mouth from that. And the way that a customer leaves you is just as important as the way that they come in. Going back to proactively reaching out to your customers. I cannot stress that one enough. Don't wait for them to come to you. Always be genuine and authentic in the interactions that you have. Do not try to be someone that you're not. Obviously, match the tone of your customers, but be who you are. Be genuine, be authentic, be empathetic, and be real with people. Admit when you made a mistake and do what you can to make it right. I made a mistake with a customer recently. I owned it 100%, did not put it off on anyone else because it was my fault. They were furious. They are now excited for our next call because I just admitted that I screwed up. And I said, here's where I made the mistake. Here's what I wish I had done differently. Here's what I will do differently next time. And this will never happen again. I promise you that. And that was enough for that customer and for most of my customers and for most customers in general. Just be human, be authentic, be real. Don't be afraid to say you were wrong. There's nothing wrong with being wrong. I know we only have a few minutes left, so I'm going to try to go through this really quickly. I do have this is what got screwed up, but I do have an actual like PDF or document resource that goes into all these in a little bit more in depth and gives actual like examples of how you could use them. So I'm going to walk through these pretty quickly, make sure that I include that document in the resources section so that you can review it and see like how some of these could actually be used. Basically, we're going to go through what we just went through again, but what tools would you use in HubSpot to do those things? So when it comes to improving your onboarding process, workflows to automate the process, landing pages to host your content, file manager to keep everything in one place so that if you are sending things to customers, that everyone has access to that same resource. Having a knowledge base or an FAQ page. I know not everyone has access to the knowledge base. If you don't, you can use a landing page, blogs. There's options. You got options in HubSpot. If your customer is working with an onboarding specialist, projects. So helpful. Even if they're not working with an onboarding specialist and they're self-servicing, create a checklist, a how-to guide. Walk them through it. Take what you would put in a project and put it in a guide that you give to them. Here's what you do and here's how you do it. Here's how everything is broken down. And then also, if they're working with an onboarding specialist, meetings links, templates, sequences, keep engaged. You got your workflows, but you also want to make sure that you're following up in a human-to-human level. Proactive outreach, templates help with that so much. I've created templates for just about everything so that I can easily, when I know I want to reach out to a customer, pop in that template, customize it, and send it off, reducing the time sending emails. So when you're identifying inactive customers, this is where we go a little outside of HubSpot, but then also come back to HubSpot. So ultimately, this is all dependent how you have your software set up and connected to HubSpot. A lot of my customers, and I recently learned to have a lot of SaaS customers. That was fun to learn. I guess I just never thought about it because I just think about like what they do, not how it's delivered. But some of them have built a custom integration between their system and HubSpot so that they can get data around inactive customers or other metrics that are important to them. Others will just pull it out manually, re-upload it into HubSpot. Just need the email address, can use custom properties, which is one of the tools I mentioned. Others will use something like Zapier to have zaps to say, when this happens, push this over into HubSpot. I am not a technical consultant. I do not know all the details of how it works. I just know what they tell me that they do. There's some options there, but ultimately you need to figure out identify them first and then figure out how we're going to get that information into HubSpot and the tools that we can then use. Custom properties to identify things like when was the last time, how many when was the last day or time that someone logged into the platform? Their average, it could be like average time, or their last, how long they were in there the last time they were in there. How many products or pieces of your platform are they using in a given month? And that might change every month. So we can use custom properties for that information and then create active lists based on that information to see who is disengaged and not active. So we can reach out to them either with workflows or, again, meetings, templates, and sequences. Best practice, if you're using templates and sequences, make sure your meetings link is in every single template that you have, because your goal with a sequence is to get someone to reply or book a meeting. So make sure you have that meetings link, have a call to action in every single template that you're sending out. Engaging with your customers. Lots of different ways that you can do this. Email, obviously the big one, that's how they're going to get updates. Landing pages to host all that great content that you're sharing. I don't think I put blog on here, but blog is also another one. Just because someone is a customer does not mean that they don't want to read blog content. You can create blog content that's very specific to your customers and have that still live within your blog. Just tag it for customers. Simple. Forms, kind of building off of feedback surveys. So you've got some great information from feedback surveys. You want to learn more, you can use forms to capture that information. Workflows to make sure that people are moving through the process, that you're staying engaged with them, that you're notifying them of things that are coming up, that proactive outreach, creating a workflow centered around a date property based on the renewal date and sending out reminders about their upcoming renewal at certain cadences before that. And meetings, templates, and sequences. This one just keeps coming up everywhere. It's a sales tool. Like, there are sales productivity tools, and yet they're so important when it comes to customer retention and customer happiness. Asking for feedback. We have the feedback surveys within HubSpot. Those are a pretty great place to start. And I would say if you have access to them, use them. I know I have some customers frustrated about customization, but like no one cares. Just they're gonna make it look good, but like doesn't need to be, what am I thinking of? Mona Lisa. Doesn't need to be a Mona Lisa. Just make it a good survey. When it comes to acting on that feedback that you receive, when you're creating a survey, you have the option of creating the automation based on the response that someone gives. So I'm going to use Net Promoter Score as the example. You can create for promoters, passives, and detractors your automation of what that would look like and what the follow-up is going to look like for each of those responses. Make sure you're doing that. Meetings, templates, and sequences for one-to-one follow-ups based on the feedback, especially for people who are detractors. Gives opportunity for people to meet with you, discuss their responses, give you more feedback, and tasks to remind yourself to actually do those things. Delivering remarkable customer service. Pretty much every single tool in HubSpot. So I'm not actually going to go through all of them because I'm looking at time. Honestly, I don't think that there's anything really listed in here or anything major in HubSpot that's not listed in here. So I broke it down by the different types of ways that we're going to deliver remarkable customer service. But as you can see, tickets, feedback surveys, tasks, chat flows, knowledge base, landing page, blog, there it is. Feedback surveys, templates, lists, workflows, email, meetings link, templates, and sequences. Okay, so there's the last slide that I have. To wrap it all up, creating a remarkable customer experience and identifying ways to keep your customers happy is what is going to retain your customers. It's really, really easy for any business to focus on lead generation, acquiring new customers, and putting all of your energy into the acquisition piece. But at the end of the day, and especially for SaaS companies, retention is the only way that you are going to reduce customer churn. By focusing on the strategies that we talked about, by building off of them, and by iterating, optimizing, changing, improving, taking what people say to heart, that is how you're going to keep your customers. And a happy customer is completely invaluable and is worth more to your business than a new customer who doesn't like you will ever be. So focus on making your customers happy. And if you do that and you focus on retaining them and providing them with a great experience, you're going to reduce churn in the process. Thanks.
Amazing, Christina. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was amazing. And we're getting a lot of activity in the chat. And I think that everyone would agree. Thank you so much for your time. We're going to get into a little bit of Q&A, try to do that before we head out. We just have a few questions, so I'm hoping that we can get through all of them. So the first one came from Colin. He asked, what is common symptom behavior you've seen that leads to churn? How did you get out of it? So I think you said the most common thing you see is bad customer experience, correct?
Yeah, that's usually the biggest one because it's the hardest one to come back from, especially when you're not taking the feedback that you're getting, or if you're not even asking for the feedback. So that's the biggest one that I see and that I hear from even from my customers, just in general in their experiences. Poor customer experience, I would say, is the biggest one, which can be remedied by a lot of the things that we talked about.
Right. Awesome. And then the next question we have is from Monica. She says, in SaaS, any benchmark, how much churn is normal? So I think the question here is, what's the typical, or I guess maybe the acceptable amount of churn?
I found a lot of different statistics in my research, and I'm actually just like looking back through what I had.
I think what I found, Christina, was like 5% or less per month was within the acceptable margin, if I remember right.
It's pretty low. Yeah, everything I found was all like different on industry, but I think the idea, keep it low, as low as you can. So I don't have a good answer, but I think Tim's answer is way better than whatever I have in all of my notes here.
Okay, and then the last question that I see is from Carolina. It says, many customers complain about the volume of communications. How can we be proactive without being annoying? It's a great question.
Yeah, that's a good one. And that's a really tough one that you have to learn how to balance, and it takes time. If you're hearing from your customers that they're getting too much communication, you have to dial it back. But sometimes you don't know that until you do it, because and this is how I am as a consultant, I kind of operate where I'd rather over communicate than under communicate. Just like when y'all were like, Christina, what the heck happened? Like, where are you? And I'm like, guys should have just sent an email. Like, that would have just been better than all of this. Like, but we all have this fear of over communicating. So my suggestion here is go with your gut at first. If you're hearing that you're getting too much, like they're getting too much, start to dial it back a little bit. And then also ask for feedback on that. Like, how's our communication? Do you like this cadence? Also, if it's, if you have things like newsletters, thinking about offering different cadences for that newsletters, different subscription types, things like that. But a lot of times we don't know that we're inundating people with content until after we've done it. So that's kind of the tough part, unfortunately.
Yeah. All right, I think that's it for questions that were posted. Let me see. Yes.
I like that one.
Yes, I like that too, Caroline. It's definitely better to err on the side of too much, and then someone will tell you to reel it back in, right?
Like, all right, back up, no more of this. Like, please stop, Christina. We've heard from you enough. Like, it's whatever. Then to be like, Christina, where'd you go? Where have you been? Like, why do I have not heard from you? Yeah. So that would be my advice. Is no one's going to get angry because you've communicated with them too much unless you keep communicating with them too much after they've already said, like, stop.
Yeah.
So that would be my best advice on that, because I don't think there is a good best practice, unfortunately.
Agree. Any more questions, guys? We're right at time. So make sure we answered everybody's questions. Again, the the recording will be available afterwards. I'll post on the events page. Thank you guys for joining us and for making our first hug successful. And we hope to see you guys again. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.